Thank you, one, two. Thank you, 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2. Need some powder here. 1, 2.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to... That kind of difficult, you know. The problem with this mic is not high enough. I'll do the opposite, right? Good evening. Can you hear me in the back? How the levels looking on the arm, anything? Looking good? Yeah, that kind of impossible.
liberty in the fires of hope and prayer. With boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea. This our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. Live from UNC Battleground, this is the Virtual Report, streaming on all platforms.
Members of Parliament, senators, councillors, aldermen, activists, and most importantly, the thousands of persons locked on each week to our virtual report, I say good night. I am Councillor Richard Rampasad, and I am the proud representative for the electoral district of St. Augustine South, Piarco, St. Helena. Together with my UNC brother, Councillor David Law, stalwart and activist for the district of Rio Claro, Cats Hill, we will be taking you through this evening's proceedings. Just to remind you all, we are also live on Synergy TV, Freedom 106.5, Sangeet 106.1, Street 91.9, More 104.7, and all social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook. Welcome. Our first speaker has held technical and leadership positions in over 10 organizations, including economics, lecturer at the UWI. He has been the head of operations of a major financial institution. He is a holder of a BSc in economics and an MBA in finance. Please help me welcome former UNC Senator, Mr. Tahaka Obika.
Good evening to all. Good evening to Honorable Political Leader, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa of Senior Council. And good evening to all MPs and senators, members of NATEX, and to the UNC family and faithful. Give yourself a round of applause for being here tonight in our virtual Monday night meeting. To all those viewing and listening online, on the radio station, locally and internationally. The Prime Minister has told you, stay the course. This Prime Minister, his greatest hit, one of his greatest hits was wean yourself off the government. So after successfully, to your disadvantage, having you weaned off the government, whether it is you're looking for CDAP medication, whether it is you're looking for your potholes to be paved, whether it is you're looking for access roads for agriculture, whether it is support for your children who have had to go to their first day of school today, whether you're a teacher looking for the government to care, this Keith Rowley government has successfully ensured that he has weaned you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, off of the government. And of course, you know money is a zero-sum game. If you lost, who gained? The Prime Minister himself said it takes cash to care. So the cash that he is using is your taxpayers' dollars and is only caring for the PNM friends, whether it's 1,000 acres in a repo, to a PNM financier, to the PNM family members, whether it's a building in Tong for Faris Alwari's family to get millions, and of course, to whoever is a friend of Keith Rowley and his cabinet members. So, stay the course. He is asking you to stay the course. So he came with a roadmap, a spotlight, the roadmap breakdown. He brought a spotlight on the economy. And what is the synopsis of the spotlight? He brought an economist, and the gravest warning from that economist, Dr. Dave Siratan, was that rising social inequality that we are experiencing in Trinidad and Tobago breeds instability. And if it continues, it will destabilize not just the economy, but also the general politics, the state of the country. So he stopped short of saying that there will be a revolution in Trinidad and Tobago. But we in the United National Congress have been saying this since 2015, warning you that should you give the keys to the Treasury to Keith Rowley, this will be your fate. Patrick Manning, rest his soul, warned you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, about giving Keith Rowley leadership, and it has come to pass. So we had to endure a spotlight on the economy that didn't shine a light on you, the stakeholders of the country. I'm seeing persons here from Pinal, Debe, persons from Separia, persons from Point Fortin, persons from Sangre Grande. Did you see anything in that spotlight that reflected the needs that you have in your community? The answer is no. It's a resounding no. And of course, a government with a toxic mix of no jobs, no economic growth, new taxes for the people, and families not being able to see the way on month 10. Because the central bank just last month published some statistics that I'm sure speakers after would detail on, that shows what we know to be true. In all the constituency offices and all the local government offices across the country, when persons come to us and say, here na partner, I ain't have money to make it to the end of the month. Water more than flour. The central bank has proven it. And maybe that's why the governor of the central bank wasn't present in the spotlight. Because it's the governor of the central bank that has embarrassed this government by publishing the true statistics of suffering under Keith Rowley and the PNM. So we have an economic spotlight, and they brought an economist there who said basically what we have been saying. So for those of you who may have missed it, because of course the media reports what they must report, and for some reason this may have slipped them. So we are trying to help the media to dig back into the spotlight and look for the presentation of the one external economist that the government brought, Dave Siratan, where he said that the country is facing a worsening financial position of government. What does that mean? That means that they're borrowing to the hilt, and that borrowing will have to be paid by your children, our children. All right? Weakening of balance of payments, of course, foreign exchange. You have to find US, because they closed down the refinery that would have generated the revenue, the foreign exchange, for us to help with our foreign exchange problems in this country. And if you close down your refinery to buy oil, you could imagine that the problems that we are facing as a result of that. Higher debt levels, declining international reserves, economic decline, 7 years under Keith Rowley. For the past 7 years, this economy has declined every single year. And imagine the lie. The Minister of Finance got up since the media review in April. He came back again on Friday and said that the economy is doing well. All right? We get $8.6 billion from oil and gas. And on the same day, almost a slap in both in the face, CSO, which is under the same Keith Rowley PNM, CSO publishes that the economy declined by 1%. So here you have it, Imbert saying the economy growing, but CSO, the statistical office, where all this country's statisticians are employed, is telling the population that the economy declined last year, and this morning we woke up to see that it declined by an next 4% in the first quarter in 2022. So, who lying? The public servants in the CSO, who doing the job, or Coleman Burt? I know you could pick sense from that. And of course, rising unemployment. Now, we have been saying it time and time again, but it's very important that when a University of the West Indies professor called by the government to trumpet and boast how good they have been doing, comes out and talks in a very gloomy manner, a scary manner, about the state of joblessness in this country and the fact that that could lead to instability, we must all stand up and take note. I'm not sure if they might invite Dr. Dave Siratan to speak at any more spotlights on the economy after what he said. Because what he said, and I quote, one of the most important aspects of the challenges we face because it has implications for social and political instability is the rising unemployment. Now, the first port of call that this government went to when they came into office was removing the social safety net. So you lost your work and you can't get no help from the government. So you in the middle, and the future of your children and your family jumping up like a steel band in tongue. You in trouble. And of course, it's like when I was in the gas station on the weekend, pumping gas, a lady comes to me and say, I need some help to buy some school books for my children. She have the book list. So everybody at every pump giving she some money. I was the last person, because I was on the last pump. So I say, Tanti, you know, if you did vote for Auntie Kamala, you'd have been in a better position today, because you'd have been able to access a grant so that your children, you look like a grandchildren probably, could have gotten the books that you need. And this lady, bless her soul, couldn't recognize the connection between voting for Keith Rowley and getting school books for children. Voting for Keith Rowley meant a vote against school books for your children in this country. And that is a clear and important distinction we must make So when Coleman Wood comes and says $5 billion for social assistance to who? Because when you look at all the social assistance programs that they have, is through a P&M party card, they have to get it. Don't forget, just in January, we installed in this country, a new executive in Tobago, the PDP. And in the election campaign in November, there was a senior man from the P&M in Tobago boasting that he walking around. You could catch him in a Sept, you could catch him by the beach, you could catch him in the bank. He always have a fat pocket full up with about 400 food cards that he could give out willy-nilly to whoever he want. But you have to be a P&M. If you're not a P&M, you ain't getting that. And that is the P&M's method of distributing your tax dollars to those who need it. Every single program that has been designed, and it didn't matter which prime minister was there, every program that was designed to equitably ensure those who are living on the margins, those who are suffering from poverty, get assistance. Every program has now become a program that you have to go through a P&M party group to get. If it's agriculture, you want land, you used to go by the Land Settlement Agency. It didn't matter which government was in office. Now you have to go to a P&M constituency office to get access to land in the Youth Agriculture Homestead Program. That has become a P&M program now. If you want to get the $250,000 in grant for agriculture, for farming, if the minister ain't finding you singing like a P&M, you're not getting it. Your dog's dead. If you want to get your child to go to university to get taxpayers' dollars to support their education, whether it's a scholarship, now they make that a bursary. So it's our next P&M program you have to go through. And if your party card sung into UNC or to anybody else, your father might be a bad trade unionist and sign up against the P&M. Your dog's dead. So their approach to social intervention is P&M or debt. And I think that was the warning Dr. Dave Siratan was giving to this government. He told this government that the World Bank cannot help them to bring social peace in this country. The World Bank cannot help them with the policies. We have been saying that all the time in the UNC, that you must be people-centered. You must use plans and programs that emanate from the people of Trinidad and Tobago, for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But of course, that goes in one ear and out the next under this Rowley P&M, because unless it's P&M, it's nothing. So, we have a long program, so I want to leave you with some words. It's important at this time that we, the people in Trinidad and Tobago, recognize the sham, the puppy show, the ride that was that spotlight, that Keith Rowley is taking the country on a next joyride. Right now he's joyriding in Switzerland with your tax dollars. He's taking you and us on a joyride. And when somebody playing you for a fool, you have to give them a shock. You have to give them hell. Just like the teachers today that sent a message to this government that they will resist them. Just like those teachers across the length and breadth of this country. I have 2 children in school, but I stand in solidarity with the teachers of this country. This government that has told you to wean yourself off the state, whilst their P&M friends, family and financiers feed till the fat, you have to give them hell. Do not stay the course with this P&M. This Rowley P&M that I've told you, not how they will help you to get back jobs, but that you must stay quiet. When they say stay the course, they mean stay quiet. Hush your tail, whilst their bank accounts getting fat. Do not stay the course with this Rowley P&M that have stolen the laptops from your children. Whilst now our next P&M door you have to go through to get a laptop for your child. Under Kamla Prasad Bisesa, every child has a birthright. Got a laptop. Every child has a birthright. Once you got into secondary school, it was your entitlement. Now you have to prove to a PNM that your child deserves a laptop. That is to silence you. So when Councillor Meru, you understand? One of his family members go. They go say, now your uncle is a bad UNC man. Nothing for you unless he shut up. Unless Councillor Meru keep quiet. Then nobody in the family will get nothing. That is how the PNM is using your tax dollars to provide social intervention in this country. So I say, do not stay the course with the PNM that has left your roads destroyed whilst they're riding on pillows to the golf course in Chagaramas and Kitrawli constituency. Do not stay the course with this Rowley PNM, a prime minister, that whenever he get a little cough, a little flu, he jump on a jumbo jet, you know, Bunjigal, and say, straight up the jumbo jet into Sept. He jump on a jumbo jet and straight into the best healthcare he could find, that money could find in California, whilst you and I have to suffer to find a hospital bed. Whilst our senior citizens, the elderly, our sacred elderly, have to suffer to get pressure medication, diabetes medication, because they're not funding the CEDAP program. They do not care about you. Are you going to stay the course with that government? Of course not. We must resist. We must oppose this heartless Rowley PNM. The days of staying silent are done. Do not stay the course, Trinidad and Tobago. Do not stay the course. You owe it to your children. You owe it to the children yet to be born. To do this, you must do to this government what they have done to you over the past 7 years. Give them hell. Legally, of course. Even though this government does not care about justice. Give them hell because that is the only thing they understand. Give them hell. Whether it's to sit in, to sick out, march, protest, whatever you must, give them hell. Then and only then, you will get a government that will care, as Rowley said, will find the cash to care for your children, for our mothers, for our sick, for the marginalized, for the jobless. The people of Trinidad and Tobago, give the Rowley PNM hell until they get out of office, because that is the only justice they will know. I thank you.
Time to wean yourselves off the PNM once and for all. Thank you, Brother Taka Obika, for that hard, cold reality of despair, despotic, and devious governance under Rowley. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, needs no introduction, but of course, with due respect, she deserves one. She's vibrant, youthful, passionate. She has grown up in the UNC. She began her vocation in national service in 2003 as one of the youngest councillors ever elected serving in the electoral district of Valsin South, Caparo. She also became the youngest chairman of the Tanapuna Piarco Regional Corporation in 2010. She currently serves as the deputy chairman of the United National Congress National Executive. If political patriotism and unwavering loyalty with limitless sacrifices ever had a name and a face, it would be Khadija Amin. Please welcome to the UNC virtual platform the Member of Parliament for St. Augustine, the Honorable Khadija Amin.
A special good evening to my UNC family, to those of you who are listening online, those of you who have joined us in person here at the M. Rampasad headquarters of the United National Congress, And let me say a special good evening to my political leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and my UNC St. Augustine family. My friends, the United National Congress has always been a people-centered party, and when in government, a people-centered government. Democracy that we have in this country is where we, the people, elect a government to represent the needs and the cry of the people. We do not elect people to sit and do their own thing. In the 8 years that this government has been in office, and in the 8 budgets that they have brought from 2015 to 2022, I want to ask you, as a citizen, have they ever asked you what you would like them to spend your money on? Because this is taxpayers' dollars, this is our money. The money is given through taxes and other forms of revenue to be used for the best interest of the citizens. But instead, what we have is a government using it for their own interest. Have they ever asked the fisherman? Have they ever asked the farmer? Have they asked the student what they need in the budget? Have they gone to parents, mothers and fathers who are facing the rising cost of expenses? Have they gone to small and medium businesses? No, they fraternize with the 1%. The major financiers are the ones who have the heirs of this PNM. Have they gone to the at-risk youth in this country? Have they gone to small and middle-income families? The answer is no. We in the United National Congress, although in opposition, we are a government in waiting, and we continue to listen to the people. And so for the past couple weeks, in preparation for the upcoming budget, the United National Congress has launched the pre-budget consultations that has gone throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We had a grand launch in Chaguanas, and let me tell you, the Chaguanas Borough Hall was overflowing. You had people outside who couldn't come in. People from the regions of Couva, Tabaki, Talparo, and Chaguanas came. And that day, you had rain, you had flood, and people drive through flood to come and voice their opinions. In fact, there was one stakeholder, farmer, president of the Jerningham Junction Farmers Association. He asked to speak early, to leave, to go back because his crops were flooding. And he gave his contribution and left. We went to Tableland, where we met with the people of the region of Princestown, Mayaro, and Rio Claro. We went to Barataria, where the people of Diego Martin region, Port of Spain, and Sawa Lavantil came together to voice their opinions. Well, you know, there were people there from Rowley constituency, and I saw shame for Rowley. The questions that were asked tells me that these people forget that they are elected to represent. They are elected to represent those who elect them, not themselves. Tonight, I want to take the opportunity to extend appreciation to our UNC local government councillors who went above and beyond to invite stakeholders from every community that we have been to. Because this is not the UNC opinion, this is the UNC facilitating our stakeholders putting forward their views, their contribution, what they would like to see. And in every region, we had people from the business chambers, people from farmers associations, people from youth organizations, people from taxi and maxi driver associations representing the transport industry, people from the tourism sector, and we had businessmen, farmers, fishermen, educators, and parents. I want to take this opportunity tonight to thank the people who put their voices forward. The purpose of this consultation, this pre-budget consultation that is facilitated by the United National Congress, is to allow the voices of the ordinary people to be heard, because we know that the PNM not doing that. We have been able to engage people to give their views, and it was not just criticism. It was people putting ideas forward, constructive ideas forward. And what we have coming out of that is our Leader of Opposition Secretariat taking notes that will be a part of the opposition's response to the PNM's budget in a few days' time. The Leader of Opposition continues to keep her ear close to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, I want to share with you some of the views that came forward. We had young people, university students, nursing students, who came forward with concerns about funding for GATE. And people who do their degree now know that if you want to be an expert in your field, you can't stop there. You have to do a master's. The stop in funding for GATE is affecting so many people who would have otherwise gotten that funding under Kamla Persad-Bissessar as Prime Minister. We still have parents who, in spite of the PNM talking about laptops, have not received laptops for their children. It means that for the past 2 years, they have failed to get a virtual education, and they are falling behind. And their parents are worried and concerned. They feel as though the PNM is throwing their children in the rubbish bin. We are calling on the government to put laptops, make laptops available for every single child in secondary school, as well as give devices to those in primary schools who are preparing for SCA exam. Had Kamla Persad-Bissessar been Prime Minister, I feel by now all primary school children would have had devices provided by the government. We had persons telling us that under education, there were schools that were still closed. The Jerningham, the Londonville Presbyterian School, and there was another one in the Tabaquite area that were closed because the government failed to do the necessary repairs. What it means is that their children are either on shift system or they are in very cramped conditions. And with COVID-19 and the reopening of schools, they have more contamination and they are more likely to be affected. They also complain that rural transport has been decimated by this government. The people of Bish and Manzanilla and Plumitan, whose children go to school in Porta, Spain, Tacarigua, Arima, used to get school transport that has stopped. Even the PTSC bus service in some of these areas have stopped. In Tabaquite, children who go to school in San Fernando and Central also are not getting transport. Parents are telling us that they are spending minimum $1,000 to $1,200 per child for 20 school days. And of course, sometimes a month have more than 20 school days. So they are literally working for transport for their child. We call on the government to ensure that the rural transport is reinstated to allow children to access their schools. Some of these rural areas are so picturesque and beautiful, and they are a part of our local tourism. And you know, we had people coming forward to tell us why in Mayaro and Sandy Grande and Manzanilla, you must have tourism, local tourism, as a driving force towards developing the economy, creating employment for local businesses and local citizens. These citizens who spoke were not asking for a handout from government. They were asking for our local tourism in Trinidad and Tobago to be developed. When we had the consultation in Barataria, a similar sentiment came from those who spoke about using Carnival as a means of employment for citizens throughout the country, because a lot of people come to Port of Spain for Carnival, but the PNM government does not recognize many of the sectors and the stakeholders who are involved in Carnival. And these are opportunities to create employment without creating dependence on government. These are ideas coming out of citizens who attended the UNC consultation. We also had entrepreneurs such as fishermen who tell us that they are risking their lives every day when they go out to sea because they are not protected. We don't know what Fitzgerald Hines doing. Don't let me start on Fitzgerald Hines tonight. We don't know what Fitzgerald Hines is doing to protect our fishermen out on the ocean. The fishing facilities have been neglected, and sometimes the cost of bringing in a catch, when you consider the increased cost of gas, the increased cost of transportation, when their ice machines are not working and they have to transport ice from very far and pay additional cost, when they pay a person to help them bring in for labor, sometimes they make very little. And again, this affects the price of the food, the fish that comes to our table. It affects food prices. Our farmers, when our farmers don't get their subsidy for on time, when they don't get compensation for flooding for losing crops, these things affect food prices in the market, just as the conditions of fishermen increase the prices. In the meanwhile, though, on the other hand, we had elderly people coming forward as well. Elderly people who tell us that while they get their pension, previously they would get most of their medication on Sept, and they would make do to buy their groceries and pay their little expenses. It seems, I want to ask this government, has Sept collapsed? What is the status of Sept since our pensioners, our disabled persons, and other persons who depend on Sept have been complaining for months, in fact, could be years, that the medication they need is not available on Sept. So you know, when you have your sick grandmother who gets her pension, she's going to spend her whole pension on medication, with very little left for food and other expenses. Our elderly citizens are living in poverty, even though they are getting their pension. And the PNM has to come forward and tell us, if you have scrapped the Sept program, say so. If you have decided to deprive our citizens of medication, come out and tell us and stop fooling the population. The Sept program has all but gone under this PNM government. Well, let's talk about South and landslips. When we went to Tableland, the issues coming out were not just complaints, you know. There were countless landslips, but you know what the residents were concerned about? That some of their tourist sites, for instance, the Mud Volcano and other areas of interest, where people would drive and go and visit, the roads are almost impassable. It means that residents who are involved in micro-entrepreneurship, who sell palori, who sell foodstuff, who sell other things that is on the route, are now deprived of an income. So when you hear Michelle Benjamin burning tires, when you hear Barry Padara talking about landslips, when you hear Rodney Charles and Naparima calling on the government to fix these landslips, it is not just about the road. It is about the income and the possibility of survival from the residents. So government has to move away from the political victimization of landslips and fixing roads and other issues and really get to getting our country independent. The feeling that I got from these consultations is that people are not begging for handouts. People are asking for an opportunity to earn for themselves. And I can tell you that the UNC's economic transformation plan has gotten quite a few things right. I want to urge you, if you have the opportunity, go online to the UNC website and look at it. Because it speaks to using tourism as a development driver in Mayaro and on the East Coast. It speaks to using agriculture and fishing in the Sandy Grande region and other regions. It speaks to manufacturing on the Tunapuna and the East-West corridor. It speaks to the things that are of the people. And so, while many are throwing cake sales and barbecues and fundraising and hampers, all of us as UNC MPs, as councillors, we have been doing our share of charity. Tonight, before I close, I just want to take the opportunity to extend condolences because this country lost a woman who has been, really a giver. Ms. Leela Sukhdeo Naipal, who is the co-founder of Extra Foods, the supermarket chain, which was founded 57 years ago, she passed away. As I extend condolences to the family, I want to acknowledge how much charity they have done within communities that doesn't have anything to do with politics, but because my constituents in St. Augustine, which is close to the Grand Bazaar branch, has benefited. I just want to pay tribute to her and her family. My friends, we are also in a holy period for Hindus, Ganesh Utsav, and Hindus believe that Ganesh is the remover of obstacles. There is one major obstacle in this country that has to be removed, and it is the PNM. We must all, regardless of our race, religion, regardless of our station in life where we live in this country, we must all commit ourselves to do better for this country and for our children by removing the PNM from government. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you, MP Amin, for that fiery presentation, and thank you for bringing to the fore some of the findings from the recently concluded pre-budget consultation. Our next speaker is a UNC powerhouse. He is fearless and outspoken. He has a bachelor's degree in government with a minor degree in international relations, a diploma in law, and a postgraduate diploma in communications. Please welcome to the UNC Virtual Report Platform the Member of Parliament for Princestown, Mr. Barry Padara.
Is UNC about to fall? Top done!
Political leader of the United National Congress and the best Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago has ever seen, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, Senior Counsel, colleagues from both the upper and lower houses of Parliament, colleagues in the local government fraternity, brothers and sisters of the UNC, Trinidad and Tobago citizens all. Our country awoke to Sunday's Guardian with a headline, 1 billion in legal fees under the PNM administration. Now, what was most mind-boggling was that the article indicated that several ministries and state enterprises, their legal fees were not included in that figure, and that the $1 billion may actually be more in terms of how much the PNM has racked up over its tenure. You know, I always often like to use local parlance. And when we say in local parlance, when you dig hole for other people, be careful you yourself fall in it. Tonight, I raise this matter in the context of what is happening at two state companies, namely WASA and TSTT. For the past year on this platform, we have exposed and preempted the machinations of the government in its attempt to privatize TSTT and WASA and sell off its assets to friends, financiers, and family of the PNM. On yesterday's front page of The Guardian, it also had another headline that read, TSTT changing their business model. Now, while TSTT has taken the bread and butter out of the mouths of thousands of workers and placed them on the breadline, their political hatchet men and women are reaping the rewards of their years of service to the PNM while they hide under the cloak of independence. I have told you in the past of wolves that come in sheep's clothing. But I've also told you that we will expose them, their agendas, and their allegiances. In 2017, from Anand Ramlogan, former Attorney General, he brought a matter against TSTT before the courts. This came after TSTT refused a Freedom of Information request to disclose information on its management structure, salaries, and its shareholder agreement. The request asks for salaries, stipends, and processes used for hiring persons in managerial positions. In 2017, TSTT lost the matter to Ramlogan, not surprisingly, and a learned judge determined that TSTT is a public authority that is subject to the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act. Now, I am almost certain you all are wondering where I'm going with this, but let us connect the dots. You see, TSTT appealed that judgment, and just a few weeks ago, on Friday, 29 July 2022, the Court of Appeal upheld the High Court judgment determining that TSTT was not exempted from the Freedom of Information Act. Now let me demonstrate the lengths that the PNM will go to protect its own under the Costa Nostra. A few days ago, I received a copy of a Freedom of Information request sent into TSTT after the Court of Appeal judgment. The contents are as follows. Let me just get a minute. The name of the public authority to which the Freedom of Information was applied to is the Telecommunications Services of Trinidad and Tobago. And these were the items that were requested of TSTT. 1, the remuneration package of Mr. Kamal Georges as a Senior Management Environmental Social Reputation Manager. 2, the dates on which Mr. Kamal Georges assumed duties as a Senior Manager, Environmental Social Reputation Manager. 3, the date on which the position of Senior Manager, Environmental Social Reputation Management was created. 4, the process and or procedure used to employ Mr. Kamal Georges as Senior Manager, Environmental Social Reputation Management. 5, the persons and or committee used to evaluate and or interview to select Mr. Kamal Georges as a senior manager. 6. A copy of the report of the person or persons and or committee used to evaluate and or interview and or select Mr. Kamal Georges as senior manager. 7. The criteria and basis used for the selection of Mr. Kamal Georges as senior manager. 8. If the process was advertised, the date of the advertisement, the method of advertisement employed, whether by print or electronic media. Copies of the advertisement, the names and qualifications of the persons that applied for the position. If any copies of the interview notes for the position of senior manager is available. 9. The duties and responsibilities of the position of senior manager, environmental social reputation management. 10. The terms and conditions of Mr. Kamal Georges' position as senior manager. 11. Copies of all minutes of the board in relation to the evaluation and or selection of Kamal Georges. 12. The process, practice, and procedure used to hire managers at TSTT. 13. If the position of senior manager, environmental social reputation management was previously held by any other person. The name and qualifications of the person, the remuneration package of the person, the terms and conditions of the person previously holding the position, and the remuneration packages of all managers of TSTT. Now, I just told you in 2017, Anna Ramlogan and others applied. TSTT refused to give it to them. Mr. Ramlogan took it to the courts. The High Court upheld that TSTT was a public authority and they had, by law, to respond and give them the information. TSTT then appealed that judgment. July of this year, the Court of Appeal upheld the High Court judgment. And I want to be able to connect the dots to you tonight because something very interesting has happened in our nation's parliament. We received a copy of a legal notice just a few days ago when the parliament sits. And this is legal notice 143. And this is a copy of the legal notice. And when the parliament resumes, bam, on the order paper, the government is bringing exemptions to the Freedom of Information Act. Tonight, I ask whether a legal notice has been drafted to exempt TSTT and circumvent the ruling of the Court of Appeal. Tonight, I am asking what is inside of TSTT that government is going out at such great lengths to hide. Tonight, I am asking, why are they refusing to enforce the law? On August 25th, an email from the CEO's office, the CEO of TSTT, in a request for an update on the Freedom of Information that was filed into the hiring of Kamal Georges. The response was this: it has been sent to the legal department. Based on the court ruling, it has to go to the FOIA department, not the legal department. Why does TSTT and the government don't want you to know through a confirmation or denial that a $75,000 salary package has been paid out to one man when people in this country cannot get 75 cents to buy food? Who determined that this position was to be created and not advertised? And which government minister passed on the instruction to the CEO of TSTT, Lisa Agard, to hire one Kamal Georges? Is this a reward for bias and political slants against the UNC through a media house over the past few years? Is this the highest form of interference with respect to hiring a political hatchet man or woman who has done the bidding of the People's National Movement to prevent the information from coming out. Brothers and sisters, I've told you to connect the dots, and we have connected the dots in the UNC. We have always promised you that we will expose the machinations of the PNM, those who cloak themselves as independent persons inside and outside of the media. Today, their political PNM petticoats are showing, and we will continue to expose them, because what they are doing is that they are using state resources to the benefit of friends, families, and financiers of the PNM, and putting thousands of citizens on the breadline while giving political favor and rewards to those who have done their bidding to get them into power and into the positions they are in today. But I will not stop at TSCT. You know, former Prime Minister Patrick Manning used to tell us facts are a stubborn thing. And we in the UNC, when we speak of things, we have documents and we work with facts. So tonight I've shown you the interference inside of TSTT, the attempts to circumvent the law and the Court of Appeals ruling. But I want to sound warning to TSTT tonight. Anand Ramlogan and Jayanti Lakshmi Dayal have court closed, and they are waiting for you at the Privy Council. So if you do not enforce the law, and you try to use the resources of the state to reward those who have done your political bidding, we are waiting for you at the Privy Council. And that is probably one of the reasons why they are championing inside and outside of the Parliament with their mouthpieces cloaked in independence on the independent benches for the UNC to support removing the Privy Council. But as our political leader has told you time and time again, as long as there's life in our bodies and they are representatives of the UNC inside of the Parliament, we will never give them that support where you cannot trust the independence of the Caribbean Court of Justice to replace the Privy Council. Tonight, I also want to show you the political interference, the machinations of the PNM inside of WASA. And you will understand why TSCT and WASA is so important to the government these days. Brothers and sisters, Shakespeare once said, "What a tangled web we weave when we first set out to deceive." You see, the government's buzzwords these days has been restructure and change the model, but it's the same old khaki pants. Recently, government has announced that they are interested, and they have put out a notice in the newspaper and other advertisements for a new CEO at WASA. We saw the debacle where one CEO resigned about a year ago, another one having been suspended and then removed from the position, and then one Kelvin Romain was announced as the acting CEO of WASA just a few months ago. Tonight I want to ask Minister Marvin Gonzalez whether or not this memo from the Human Resources Division of WASA dated the 10th of November 2021 is an authentic memo, because it says, and it is directed at one Kelvin Romain, and it says, "The Human Resources Division wishes to inform you that a decision was taken to re-centralize the functions of the Water Loss Control Water Optimization Unit within the Technical Services Department on a project basis. In this regard, you are to report to Mr. Eric Lewis, Head Manager, Technical Services, who will inform you of your duties and responsibilities." 10th November 2021. by June 22nd of 2022, a man who is reporting to a manager inside of WASA becomes the boss of all the managers inside of WASA by June 2022. You heard that right? A man who was told via memo to report to the head manager on the 10th of November 2021, by June 2022, he is now the acting CEO in charge of all the managers. And you ask yourself, how did this happen? Tonight I want to ask Mr. Kelvin Romaine, I want to ask Minister Marvin Gonzalez, because if you cannot answer, we will answer for you. Has Kelvin Romaine been the campaign manager for a PNM candidate in South Trinidad? What is the relationship, physical, non-physical, financial, non-financial, of Mr. Romaine to a PNM South Member of Parliament? Brothers and sisters, Shakespeare told us what a tangled web we weave when we first set out to deceive. The long and short of WASA and TSCT is the government is putting party hats, square pegs in round holes to dish out the political patrimony of our country to the friends, financiers, and family of the People's National Movement. We have been sounding warning to the workers of WASA, TSCT, and TNTech over the past year. And when we come on this platform and we speak truth and we speak facts, we can back it up with our documents and data. We have placed questions that we already have the answers to inside of TSCT and inside of WASA. And I've said to you, you can run, but you cannot hide. You can run, but you cannot hide. Our political leader always tells us, you can do and do and do only for so long until it catches up with you. And brothers and sisters, tonight, we on this platform sound a warning to the PNM that we are on to you. We will continue to expose you. We will continue to expose those who hide behind the cloak of secrecy and say that they are independent when they are really wearing PNM petticoats, receiving handouts and rewards from the PNM for attacking the UNC, whether it's inside of the media or outside of the media. We will continue to expose you for what and who you are. And we will continue to stand on the side of truth and justice and stand on the side of Kamla Persad-Bissessar, the best prime minister and the best political leader to take us forward into this country's future so that our children and our grandchildren will have a better quality of life going forward. Brothers and sisters, as I end on that note, there's one other issue that I want to raise tonight. School was announced to be reopened today. The media has reported all day that 95% of our schools remained unoccupied. Today, the government, in an attempt to deflect from the national attention of what was going on, made an announcement of 7,000 laptops that they're trying to procure. 2 years after a pandemic, when thousands of children have fallen by the wayside in a feeble, weak, piss-poor attempt to deflect from your incompetence. 7,000 laptops that we will have to wait for because you're now looking to procure it to come somewhere into the future will help who? When so many children have already been affected by the poor standards and the poor quality of education in terms of what the government has been doing. In my own constituency, I stand here with a very heavy heart because the only school that remains on a shift in all of Trinidad and Tobago is in the constituency of Princestown. Princess Tongue Presbyterian number 1 and Princess Tongue Presbyterian number 2. This government, through Anthony Garcia, stood in the parliament when I asked about Princess Tongue Presbyterian 1. Then, in those days, they used to call him Sleepy Garcia. One day he woke up and he said, well, yes, we will build this school. Well, that was the last year he served as a minister in 2015 when Gatsby Dolly came in bundles, as Anil refers to. When bundles came in, and you asked her in the parliament, she said, I don't know nothing about that. And that is like everything else in this country, that today is today and yesterday is yesterday. Where there is no consistency, where there is no interest, where there is no care of what happens to the children and the future of this country. And tonight I've demonstrated to you what is happening in the public utility sector. We have seen today the collapse, the total collapse. There's no coming back of the education sector under this People's National Movement government. Khadija just told you what has happened in local government. My brother, Dr. David Lee, our deputy political leader, will share with you what is happening in the energy sector. But it is up to you and I to make a conscious decision. As Tahaka told us, to do not lose faith, to stand and be our brothers and sisters' keeper. But we in the UNC cannot do it alone. You often tell us, well, what are you doing and what are you saying and where are you all? But the question that we are throwing out to you today, and Mr. Pandey used to always tell us, he said, everybody tells you protest, everybody tells you go in the parliament, say this, that, and the other. When you look back for support, not one man jack behind you. Tonight I call on not only UNC supporters. How much more bamboo can you take? I ask of you to join in solidarity with our party, with our leader, who has a vision for this country, who can restore good governance, who can give our children a future, where Trinidad and Tobago will have a chance at coming up from the doldrums that we are in today. So brothers and sisters, I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to be here and share with you this evening. But I ask you, while we do our part, for you to also do your part. I thank you.
Is UNC about to fall? Talk done. Talk done. 'Cause the UNC works for you. Work. Start the engine. Work.
Thank you, MP Barry Padarat, fiery, fearless, and forthright giant from Princess Tongue. And he reminded us that over the last 7 years, with the 7 budgets of the PNM, the only sector which has grown by leaps and bounds is political patrimony, political patronage for friends, family, and financiers. We are live on the UNC Virtual Report, and our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, has been offering visionary, people-centered, and service delivery representation to the people of Pointe-à-Pierre ever since he was elected as a member of parliament in September of 2015. He's one of our 3 deputy political leaders and is the formidable opposition chief whip in the lower house. He is active, visible, grounded, and highly connected. He is the UNC Shadow Minister for Energy Affairs. Please welcome to the UNC Virtual Report, the Member of Parliament for Pointe-à-Pierre, Dr. David Anthony Lee.
Is UNC about to fall? Talk done. Talk done. 'Cause the UNC works for you.
Thank you, David Law, Council and the Mayoral Corporation for that introduction here tonight. Good night to my political leader, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, Senior Counsel, also Opposition Leader of our great party and Member of Parliament for Siparia. I'd like to also say good night to my colleagues who spoke before me, MP Barry, MP Khadija, my good friend Tahaka Obika, and all my UNC families that I see here at our head office here tonight. Before I start off my presentation here tonight, I'd like to offer my prayers and best wishes to a speedy recovery to the children and the driver of my constituency of Pointe-a-Pierre, especially in the Claxon Bay area, that they had an unfortunate accident on their way to school this morning. As you know, today was the first day of school, and I wish them a speedy recovery, and our prayers are with them at this point in time. Budget day is coming, September 26, Monday, September 26. And I want to tell Trinidad and Tobago here tonight that this PNM government, enough is enough. Let us end the propaganda. The people of this nation must understand that this is not a government of progress. It is not a government of delivery, and it is not a government of compassion. Tonight, I want to ask citizens to ask themselves, do you really believe Minister Imbert, the Minister of Finance, when he said that this country in the spotlight on last Friday is on a path to recovery, as he mentioned in the spotlight at the Hyatt? I want to say to you, and I listened to him carefully on Friday, giving his presentation. And when you read the daily newspapers the day after, you had headlines such as TT's cost of living crisis. This is after he talked about the recovery. CSO, economy, our economy on decline by 4% in the first quarter of this year. Another headline, disconnected from reality. This is about Imbert and his spotlight on the economy. Government failed to put spotlight on the people. These are the headlines that were in the daily newspaper right after Imbert's presentation on the economy on Friday. And our own MP Tanku, yesterday on our press conference, in today's newspapers, Imbert gaslighting the population. And I agree with MP Tanku that his presentation on Friday, September the 2nd, was about gaslighting the population of our country. If things were so good, why did we have to read in the headlines in the daily newspapers, parents bawling over books? This was in the Sunday Express. If things are so good, why did we have to see teachers today, our first day, resting and reflecting on the first day of school in our country? If things are so good, as Imbert says, why is the government putting us on alert that fuel prices is pending and will increase in the future? Trinidad and Tobago, day after day, you see the suffering right before your very eyes. Do you feel Imbert's economic recovery when you pay the high prices at the fuel pump as today, and it will increase in the future? Do you feel Imbert's economic recovery when you pay the high prices when you go to the grocery and our supermarkets? So they talked about inflation is not as high as the international countries, somewhere just under 5%. But every one of us here in the audience and the people who are viewing us here tonight, when you go to the supermarket and you ask yourself, can you buy what you used to buy when Kamala Persad-Bissessar was in charge of this government? And the answer is no. So what they did in the last few years, this government, they did away with the old cotton note, the $100 bill. Remember that? And then they bought the new $100 bill. And when you look at the old $100 bill, the cotton note, you could have bought more with that $100 bill than the new bill that this government bought the other day and wasted our money in producing that bill. Do you feel Imbert's recovery when you drive on our bad roads? Do you feel Imbert's recovery when day after day you see people and your family struggling to get a job? This is the same man who told you in 2018 that he can see clearly now and the turnaround is coming. 2018 budget, that was his team. This is the same man who promised you growth for 7 years since they came in to control the government. 7 years from 2015 to now, and has not delivered a single year of growth. That is the man, our Minister of Finance. Minister Imbert, tonight, we in the opposition challenge you. Put your money where your mouth is. If Forex, as you say, is flowing in our country, why when we want to go to the bank, we cannot even get 200 US for the small man? Remove that cap for the common man, not just for the businesses and your friends and family. If this government is collecting more revenue, as you say, then immediately introduce a subsidy on food imports to protect the poor man and the food prices. If the overdraft, as you say, is in such a good position that you said on Friday, accept what the public servants and our protective services, our police officers, are asking for a pay increase. In the past few weeks, without any shame, this government has been going pillar to post gaslighting this country about energy. Tonight I want to set the record straight. Not a single dollar of increased energy revenue gained by this country was due to any policy, any plan, or any measure put forward by this government. It was due solely that we are seeing in the last 6 months, 7 months of the high prices, due solely to the Ukraine war between Ukraine and Russia. Nothing else. Minister Young has been boasting about the policies of this government, securing higher energy revenues. But tonight I want to ask him, which policy is that you produce for this country? Was it a policy that has caused Trinidad and Tobago to have the lowest oil and gas production in 18 years? Is that your policy? Was it a policy that causes NGC to have no gas for Train 1 last year, leading to a loss of over $240 million and the closure of Train 1 that you invested in Train 1 in Atlantic? Was it a policy that caused Yara and Mittal to leave, to shut down? Or is it the same policy that led to the most plant closures at Point Lisas in 2020? Minister Young and Minister Imbert are telling the nation the complete opposite on the true state of the energy sector. Had this government not plunged the energy sector into chaos, crisis, and a state of carnage with their policies in the last 7 years, it would have been in a better position, we would have been in a better position to earn billions more in revenue in this time of high prices. As a matter of fact, even with the high oil and gas prices, our deficit, according to Imbert, is still around $2 billion because our energy sector is not in the best position as it is today than it should have been. Minister Imbert is boasting about the millions being earned by the petrochemical sector. But a mere 2 years ago, this government crippled the downstream sector. Never forget these headlines that were out there. November 2019 in the Trinidad Express, Point Lisas on the brink. May 2020, Trinidad Express, full-blown crisis at Point Lisas. April 2021, Trinidad Guardian, Proman, the same Proman that he go to Switzerland to meet, shuts down 2 plants, and we'll come to that in a bit. This is the chaos that engulfed Point Lisas a mere 2 years ago. Today, they are running to take credit for the success of these plants, but 2 years ago, they didn't care if these plants could have operated. All the millions that they are boasting that is being earned today is just pittance compared to what could have been earned had this government not acted recklessly with the petrochemical sector 2 years ago. The sector would have been in a much stronger position than it is today. The reality facing our nation is the higher revenues are not due to any increase in oil and gas production, but just due to an increase in oil and gas prices at the international markets. Imbert and Young want to hide the fact that because our oil and gas production has fallen to its lowest in decades, we are losing billions in potential revenues as we have less oil and gas to sell. But you know what they want to cover up the most? Behind all the spotlights and all the promises of recovery, the government wants to hide that the day oil and gas prices fall, this country is in store for another economic nightmare, as our low oil and gas production levels would lead to a collapse further in our revenue. The country must understand that these high prices caused by the European war are providing a smokescreen and are providing a temporary disguise for an energy sector which is still in productive decay. Outside of high prices, this government doesn't have the slightest idea, vision, or pathway on how to increase oil and gas production. The Minister of Energy is all over the country boasting about the success of this government's strategies to increase production. Well, those strategies were just like his CNN interview, tomfoolery. Let me remind the country of this government's strategies to increase production. They had a deep water bid that failed because it wasn't attractive. It could not attract any international players. They had a shallow water bid, again that failed because it wasn't attractive. They promised dragon gas, that failed. Oil and gas production has fallen to 7 consecutive years, has fallen over the last 7 consecutive years. You want the real proof that they have done nothing to increase production in last year? Up to this day, the Minister of Finance is yet to fulfill his promise in his last budget to reform the fiscal incentive to allow for more exploration. How can we have confidence in a Minister of Finance who has, for the past 7 years, been consistently wrong in his oil and gas production figures in his budgets? We are at 59,000 barrels per day. Imbert had projected about 70,000 barrels a day. Last budget, he predicted 3.2 billion standard cubic feet of gas. Today, we are struggling at 2.5 standard cubic feet of gas. Always selling false hopes to the population. And you know what will happen in the budget? I'm fearful it's going to happen again, year after year when the budget is read by Imbert. What you find happening is in chambers. These chambers from Port of Spain will come out and praise the budget that they have done in the last 7 years. And it's the same cut and paste story they will come when the budget is presented on September 26 after Imbert is finished. Same story, nothing will change. And they have been doing that for the last 7 years. I'm asking the chambers, please open your eyes and analyze the budget that is going to be presented on September 26 by Imbert. Do not use your intelligence and be analytical for once. The UNC opposition is asking you to do that. Our energy sector is like the man who built his house on sand. They are placing the entire fate of our energy sector on the hope of higher prices without any sustainable work. The minute that oil and gas price decreases, our entire revenue stream will crumble, as this country simply does not have the gas or the incentives to sustain competitive production in times of low prices at Point Lisas. Let me talk about the refinery. Tonight, I want to read some international headlines for you. Refineries giants quadruple profits amid sky-high energy prices. This is out there in July 2022. Refineries cash in as oil prices soar. Shell sees refining profits nearly tripling, adding $1 billion US to its bottom line. This is New York Times, 2022. Around the world, refineries are cashing in on profits of over 600%, while our Petrotrin refinery earns 0% and is turning into scrap iron. Ask yourself, how are these refineries different to the Petrotrin refinery? These refineries are owned by the private companies, but you know something, you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, of this country, owned Petrotrin refinery. It meant that every single cent of profit that could have been earned had the refinery been operational would have gone back to you, the people of this great nation. On Friday, I heard the Prime Minister say, when we closed the refinery, we said we would talk to anyone who wanted to reopen it. That is what he said in the spotlight. Prime Minister, well, the OWTU and Patriotic did talk to you, but instead you choose to use them as a political football and election gimmick. As a country, it is time we stand up for their consistent political lies on Petrotrin refinery. Petrotrin was not in debt because the company had a bad business model. Petrotrin was in debt because the PNM and Malcolm Jones, the billion-dollar wastage and failure on the World GTL plant. And let us not forget that. The government keep trying to mislead the population of that Petrotrin was using out the country's foreign exchange to buy oil to refine. Let us correct that here tonight. Yes, it was using foreign exchange to buy oil to refine, but it was also earning foreign exchange when we sold the refined products on the international market. And that assisted us in foreign exchange. The total opposite right now is happening with Paria. Paria is buying fuel with US dollars and reselling it to earn TT dollars. That make any sense? This government wants to tell us that Petrotrin was making losses and not paying taxes. Today I remind the country that in its last year of operation, Petrotrin made $1.67 billion in profit. Imagine the profits Petrotrin could have made today had it been operating with these high prices in the international market. And that is why we should never allow, and we should condemn Rowley and his government for shutting down Petrotrin. What is the profitability of a new company that replaced Petrotrin? It is called the Trinidad Petroleum Holding Company. And that company recorded a $2.3 billion loss for 2019. And to date, we are in 2022, and they are yet to produce the financials of that holding company called Trinidad Petroleum Holding. And we ask them, please release the true state of affairs of Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Company. Every single argument that the government has put forward on the refinery has been nothing but pure PNM dotishness because it made zero economic sense. Prime Minister, do you really think it made sense shutting down the refinery? I am sure you are regretting shutting down the refinery, given the prices that you are seeing out here. The Prime Minister keeps telling us that the government wanted to come out of the refining business. But the Prime Minister, you could have left the refinery as a business model. You did not have to destroy it. We kept saying, the UNC and the opposition kept saying, over and over, if you wanted Petrotrin off the government books, then simply offer it for sale as a going concern. You would have been able to sell that refinery by now, and the country would have been benefiting from royalties and taxes based on that refinery. Tonight, I want to tell Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, the fuel subsidy isn't a gift or a favor to the people of this nation from Balisay House. The fuel subsidy is a return on the investment of the people of this nation as the true owners of oil and gas of our country. When you are renovating a magnificent, when the Prime Minister is renovating a magnificent 7 around the savannah, you didn't question the cost. But now you're questioning the cost of funding the fuel subsidy. When you was building the Prime Minister's residence in Tobago, you had no problem with the cost. But now you're questioning the cost of funding the fuel subsidy. Any government with common sense, or at least compassion, would understand that the fuel subsidy isn't a freebie, but is an investment to help the small man of our country. But this isn't a government for the small man. So you don't care about the cost of the small man and the cost of the high cost of living. You don't care about the cost for small business owners. You don't care about the cost to transport children to school. In the government books, their big friends and financiers can afford. So let's use the extra money to fund more projects for cabinet recusals. Yet the Prime Minister has jetted away. I now want to talk about his trip to Switzerland. Yet again, the Prime Minister has jetted away on another foreign trip to discuss energy affairs, this time in Switzerland. What benefit is our energy sector receiving? Now, I just want to pause, and you would see on the screen, our Prime Minister, the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bissessar, with at that time the Minister of Energy, Kevin Ramnarine, The other gentleman, it was the president of BP that came down to Trinidad to meet our prime minister. Our prime minister didn't go to meet him, you know. He came to Trinidad to meet our prime minister. That's the difference between our prime minister and this present prime minister. So this present prime minister is somewhere in Switzerland. And I saw a release just now before I came up that, like, they heard, Stuart Young and the prime minister heard I was coming to talk about their trip to Switzerland. So they put out a release just a while ago. I saw it on Loop TT, that ProMan will invest 1.1 billion over the next 10 years. So that's approximately 100 million per year over the next 10 years. And the government is doing like this is a big thing. But the 1.1 billion over the next 10 years, it is for their 14 plants that is in Point Lisas on normal yearly maintenance turnaround. So what they are trying to do now, they're trying to create a narrative that they are out there in Switzerland, right? Trying to generate some sort of investment for the country through ProMan. But all ProMan is doing is just telling them that their yearly maintenance will be approximately 100 million over 14 plants at the Point Lisas. Nothing big. You didn't have to go to Switzerland to find out that, you know. That is done yearly. And they could have called them on Zoom, on the phone, and they will get, because I saw they traveled with some technocrats from Trinidad ProMan to go to Switzerland to tell Rowley and Stuart Young that they're going to invest yearly maintenance at the plants. They could have done that right here. But I want to ask the question. You see, I want to ask the question. The trip to Switzerland, is it about the sale of Clico, of the methanol holding that Clico has in the methanol holding? Is it about that? Because you see, in the 2020 budget statement by the Minister of Finance, he said, and I quote, "Barring unforeseen circumstances," this is input, "I propose to introduce in fiscal 2020 a second National Investment Fund bond issue, which will be based, among other things, on the proceeds from the sale of certain shares held by Clico that are currently valued at $2.6 billion. And we ask, is it $2.6 billion Clico asset that the Prime Minister has gone to Switzerland to sell? And is that the shares in the methanol that the government, that Clico owns, that this present government has control over? So I ask, because ProMan has approximately 60% of that methanol holding plan. So we ask here, the opposition asks here tonight, tell us what is the real story that you went to Switzerland to meet with ProMan. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say before I close, the UNC always have a plan. We always have a plan. If it's one thing we know, UNC has a plan. For 6 years, and I just want to go a little bit in history, when the UNC took office in 1995, we had the task of plugging the economic hole left by the then Manning administration. In 6 years, the Pandey administration turned the economy around. The return of the PNM in 2002 meant a return to the bad old days and a reversal of our fortune. You all remember that. Once again, when the Kamla Persad-Bissessar administration took office in 2010, she immediately got to work. There was no blame game, no whining, no insults to the other side. We set about to repair the damage by the PNM. The Minister of Finance, this present Minister of Finance, came back with a set of untruths about the state of the economy under the PP government led by Kamla Persad-Bissessar. But facts are stubborn things. Back then, the economy moved from negative 4.4% in 2009 to recovery and growth by early 2011. That is what Kamla Persad-Bissessar did for our country. She left the highest level of foreign reserves ever of US $10.46 billion. And we will say that all the time. She left a Heritage and Stabilization Fund with US $5.6 billion in it. We had a very low debt to GDP ratio of 45%. We worked to diversify our economy, growing on non-energy share by 13 billion. The People's Partnership raised the minimum wage twice, from $9 to $12.50 and then to $15. Kamla Persad-Bissessar created 56,000 jobs and brought the unemployment rate down to 3%. That is what our leader did. We did all that without raising. Kamla Persad-Bissessar did all that without raising a single tax and in a time of recession. She did that. That is a leader. We worked to keep the cost of living manageable so people could enjoy a higher quality of life. Because that was always been our vision as a party and our goal to improve the lives of our people, and that is what Kamla Persad-Bissessar stands for. My friends, as I come to end, I really must, the time is rare here tonight, and I've said a lot. I want to say as I conclude, the UNC is the only party that produced a comprehensive economic plan to move our country forward. The UNC believes in equality of opportunity. The UNC believes in investing in our children and our people. The UNC believes education is a passport out of poverty, and that is Kamla Persad-Bissessar's mantra. The UNC believes that small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy and need help to grow. The UNC believes in low taxes and deregulation. We believe that our nation needs a clear and comprehensive national security policy. I see today we are up to 400 murders. The UNC remains the only hope for Trinidad and Tobago. Our economy and democracy continue to be under threat by the PNM regime, because it's the same old playbook that they are using, the PNM. And I want to say, as I end, you cannot trust a government that will delay our procurement legislation that is being done by this present government. But you know who you can trust? You can trust a leader who never increased a single tax, but reduced VAT on 7,000 food items. You can trust a leader who gave you laptops, who gave you over 100 new schools, 7 years of growth and 56,000 jobs. The UNC and Kamla Persad-Bissessar did it between 2010 and 2015, and UNC and Kamla Persad-Bissessar will do it once again when we return to government. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you.
So who feel the black? Who feel the white? I don't know. But it's set till tomorrow night. Who feel the wrong? Who feel the right? Come and go. And all who feel the too bright, let me jump up. Let me wind up. Party non-stop. Ramaje dingo lekete, we come to play mass. Every creed and class, don't let nothing pass. Like a ready TV, all the love inside away. Uptown and ghetto, feeling the tempo. Soca and Kaiso, it's party they like so. Soon as we land, fun is the plan. We like to jam like we man bam. Waving we hand inside the band, we inside the band. And if you cut me, you go see blood. And if you squeeze me, you go feel the love.